Welcome to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Empowering women like you to amplify your voice, your message, your movement. We believe that if 10,000 new women stepped into high-level leadership platforms, we can transform the industries across the planet. 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. And now your host, Narissa Street.
So, yay! We're with the awesome Vyky Saiz. So, Vyky, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Alrighty, I am a teacher. Been teaching for 6 to 7 years now. I think it's more about 6, but won't be ashamed to try to push it to 7. And I am an overly obsessive, avid film and TV show and video game consumer.
Nice.
I got accepted into the MFA film program at FSU that I am hoping to attend this fall. COVID, just waiting on some information to make sure everything is A-okay for moving forward.
Yay, awesome. Yes, well, congratulations. FSU is one of the top 10 schools for film in the country. So really excited to hear that you're going and that you're a beautiful, unique perspective will be added to the storytelling matrix. See what I did there?
Yeah. Clever.
I try. So you're here because, as you said, you uniquely obsessive, but obsessive is good, when you're interested in a particular type of topic. Like if you're not obsessed with it, it means you're not going to dive deep. And so we're excited to have that. So talk to us a little bit more about why you're obsessed with film, TV, and gaming.
It just is. So anytime I've always kind of asked people why they watch any sort of content, especially film or television, I often hear a lot that they want to escape. Well, for me, it's more of a kind of like I'm re-solidifying my existence, like in this world. So I tend to watch things or consume content that are very realistic. Now, I do prefer fictional stories to a certain extent, or for example, like if you watch a biopic film, I mean, it might be based on something that started off as true, but with the way that they utilize film, and I mean, the way that they tell the story, that's of course chosen and fictional. So I just kind of like these reminders that, either whether it's a reminder that I am not the only person going through something, or just kind of to learn about other things that other people go through. It kind of just to kind of as my way to connect with people I don't know. And I like to do that with stories that are kind of as real as possible. And if they are, let's say like hyper fictionalized, it's kind of, for example, why I may prefer sci-fi over fantasy, because if I can't see a story about the current world we live in, then maybe I want to see a story about the future world we may live in versus, I don't know, dragons or something like that.
Sure. And so interesting, because I think what you're saying about that, it sounds pretty much like everybody's approach. Well, most people's approach to the consuming of, that kind of media, like reconfirming your place in the world through the consumption of these images, like the brain thinks in pictures, the brain thinks in images. So like having that perspective and being conscious of it. I think a lot of people aren't conscious that they consume things that align with what they already believe. Right. So they consume things that align with, like, I'm consuming things that are going to reconfirm my thoughts, my beliefs, not just about myself, but about the world. So it's cool that you're like like conscious of it. So how did that now evolve into like that experience of wanting to reaffirm, you know, yourself and the things in your world? How did that evolve into what I know about you, which is the, like, you have like a whole system with which you consume?
I don't know. It definitely wasn't intentional. It's just more of, I guess, when my personality kind of gets a hold of something that I like, it's definitely, I guess it helps, especially being a teacher, to stay really organized and on top of myself with just utilizing reminders. I mean, those are the kind of, I can be neurotic in those ways, where I like to make sure I stay on top of myself in my work, especially not procrastinate. So that kind of like leaned itself into watching television shows, and because it requires maintenance to stay on top of all these shows, especially when shows only come out once a year typically.
And what show? How many shows are you tracking right now?
At this moment, about over 30.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a list on my phone of about 20 from different networks or streaming services. And then since I use Netflix's lists, you know, because they have a list, like my list, which probably at least another 10 shows. So, and Netflix, and what I have loved and appreciated so much about Netflix is that they have understood this. So not only do they remind you, not only do they let you know when the new content has come out, they even let you know the moment that the show has been approved for a next season. So they're helping you out a lot. You don't have to do so much work in keeping track of when, you know, the show is going to come back. And also what started me starting the list, what motivated that also was that I usually don't watch a show until the season ends. So I don't really care about the premiere date of a television show. I care about the season finale date of the show.
Interesting. Why?
Unfortunately, because I guess, so I got into television show when I went to college. You know, this was before Netflix, and this is, you know, when people were not ashamed to illegally download content when you're a college kid. So what happened was just being able to download seasons of shows. And when you have too much free time, I used to never really watch television before that moment. And then I started to watch shows that had, that had already ended. And I was just like, it was binging, I guess, the beginning of binging before binging became a thing. Right. Yeah. And at that time, actually, I only watched shows that already ended. So I had a guarantee, because the whole thing is that I hate waiting. I hate waiting around.
Gotcha.
Yeah. It makes me feel like it's almost like an anxiety.
Yeah, it produces anxiety. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would only watch shows that were already over. So that was helpful because I was catching up on some years of television that I never really participated in.
Interesting. But why do you think during college that was something interesting for you?
Well, aside from the fact of having too much free time, I didn't have a car, didn't have money, so it was helpful to kind of kill the time.
Right.
And plus, at that time, I was getting into what I thought at that time would be going to film school. So I was taking a lot of writing classes, and I already had enjoyed watching television and movies, so it kind of added this extra thing. I kind of wanted to see as many stories as possible. But I won't deny that it was really just a big time killer.
Okay.
Yeah, at that time. Yeah. Maybe 50%, just, you know, it's definitely something to do when you have absolutely no budget for anything and you're surviving all on student loans and you don't want to spend a dime.
Yeah, and I think I think what's great about film, TV, and media like this is that it's universally accessible. So that the escape, the viewing of these images that are affirming is universally accessible. So it's a great space to be in. So okay, so tell us a little bit about the format with which it's organized. So you talked about like first we have first. It's an ended season, right? So at least this is the end result. This is how long the season is. Where you're watching to. So like, how do you keep all of this kind of stuff organized?
Well, yeah. So the tracking started about maybe 5 years ago when I started to watch new content that I had to wait for. And I didn't want to dwell on like checking obsessively every month or whatever it was, especially when you also don't really have cable television, where cable television kind of is letting I was relying on streaming devices and IMDb kind of checking regularly. But what I do is I just have a note on my phone where I and it's backed up to the cloud, because if I lose this thing but it's organized by channel or streaming service. So it'll be Hulu and all the shows I watch on Hulu, and then HBO and all the shows I will watch on HBO, Showtime.
And then is it like by
FX.
date or like by release date or by
and then it's the different shows. Then it is on what is so at this point I'm caught up on most of my shows. So at my list right now, you'll see the network, let's say, the actual name of the show, what season I'm on next, and then like as of right now, most of them don't have any dates, but then the date on which the next season ends. So actually, if I look now, the only show I recall that I'm waiting for to end is Billions on Showtime. Love that show.
I love Billions.
Right.
Love that show.
Yeah. So on my note, it says Showtime. One of the first show underneath Showtime is Billions, number 5, because they're on season 5, and the season finale is July 20th. So that's kind of what I have there. And after I catch up on the show, then I'll remove the date, because it'll be a while before a new date is announced. And then obviously I'll change the 5 to the 6, assuming that they get renewed for a 6th season.
Hey, this is a great episode, right? Want to carry the insight from our show wherever you go? Visit myjoyisvaluable.com for the best resources that we've gathered that are inspired by expert guests. Find support for your business, tools to organize your life, and more. That's myjoyisvaluable.com.
Awesome. Now, okay, so that you have, so that's a very, very clear system. And then it sends you alerts and things like that something's happening. Now, we had a conversation which sparked this interview, and that was, hey, so what kind of shows do you like? And then the response back to me was amazing. So remind me what the response is. So what kind of shows do you like? And so your response to me was,
I believe it was, what do you really want to know? Or what exactly are you asking?
And I'm like, shows that you like. And I'm thinking, where else was I to go with that? So break down for me what you meant by like, what are you asking? What are the considerations that you have in answering what I thought was a remarkably simple question, which was, what kind of shows do you like? So what are the considerations you have?
Yeah, I guess having answered, everyone talks about this at some point around a dinner table or something. And one thing I noticed is because I like to think that I'm an observer first before a speaker. And one thing I notice is that people are not so much asking what it is that I like. Yes, they are, but they're also asking, they're looking for you to connect with them on something they like. And sometimes it's kind of like, so for me, I want to focus on what is the show that we have in common that we can bond with, because I can mention a lot of TV shows and, I admittedly watch more shows than other people. So, but also there's another aspect where sometimes people are asking, but there's always kind of like a little bit of a judgment, like, you're like, oh, what are you watching right now?
So like, that's interesting. Like the whole conversation about what show can we bond over. So
right.
then that for me sounds like in your mind, you're making a judgment of me, like, what should I throw out here that I think she'll like, versus
and
me
but
asking,
I also want to
hey, what are you watching?
Right, because it's kind of like, well, because I can mention a lot of TV. So when I just try to answer that question simply, sometimes it's a lot of people haven't watched the show.
Right.
And then they kind of almost immediately lose interest in the conversation, depending on and I'm talking about the average person, because I know like you also love film and TV, and most people usually they watch, like, I believe that they probably have about less than a handful of shows that they actively follow.
Right.
And even more often than that, people tend to even just kind of watch whatever is currently popular, kind of like when Game of Thrones became globally successful, or another show was like the Breaking Bad. These are shows that kind of like everyone was watching. So, I can shoot out kind of shows and they're kind of like, oh, I don't watch that show. And then the conversation kind of dies. And so it's kind of like, I kind of say, I watch everything, which of course is an exaggeration. I can only watch so much, but I do watch a wide variety. Tell me what you watch, and I will probably, not always, have watched it. Sometimes people are also, hold on, one more thing. Sometimes people are also looking to find a new show to watch.
Right.
But I want to learn a little bit more about what they like, because, if you just start spouting out shows, they're like, oh, either it's too many options, or often people recommend shows that they like without considering what the other person likes.
That is the thing that I thought was the most interesting, which prompted this interview. Like, so the thought that you would be, so concerned that about what someone else needs based on what we think is just a simple question. I think it speaks a lot to a few things. So the first thing, I think it speaks a lot to the fact that you're interested in other people. So I know that you study sociology, right?
Right.
And so, but I think it also speaks to the fact that you have a wide range of knowledge and have the understanding that that wide range of knowledge needs to be filtered for the average Joe. So I think it was very interesting, and I wanted to talk about that because I think a lot of people who are experts in any kind of subject matter, right? They tend to, unlike you, they tend to dump, like, say, well, what kind of plants do you like? And then you get like a brain vomit of like, oh my goodness, I'm a botanist. And so, if you like this, you like that. But the fact that within your expertise, you are studying the person that you are discussing something with, listening, as you said, observer first. And then you are saying, let's see what's the thing that would most align with this person's interest, and then that's what you give out. I think anybody who's an expert on anything could take a lesson from that. Yeah, I'm obsessed. There's certain things that I am absolutely, totally, and completely obsessed with. But yeah, when I'm speaking with you, I understand that it might not be a shared obsession. So I'll only speak about a few things, and I think more experts on subject matter need to. We keep our obsessions. We're completely organized with them. There's a wall in my studio with like the things that I'm very moderately obsessed with. But when I speak with people are asking me like, "Oh, what are you doing now?" "Oh, well, a couple things." I'm just working on a few stories.
Yeah.
I have a wall.
Right.
I have a wall. So I'm grateful that you were willing to share your perspective on that. And I hope that I can bring, this interview to the experts that I work with and say, this is the perspective you need to take. Not everybody needs to know everything that you know. They just need to know
Right. Yeah.
what's relevant.
And I think I spent especially when I was in college, kind of like around that age, spending way too much time trying to convince somebody to watch something that they don't want to watch. And it's like this kind relevant. Of combative thing. Yeah. And it's like, and maybe I am right. Let's say like maybe if they really did give it a chance, they would end up liking it. But it's not about that. It's about what is the actual likelihood that they'll give it a chance at all. Right. And when I started to realize that, I was just like, okay, I would love for everyone to really want to broaden their kind of interests. But you know what? If they just prefer hospital shows, then I'm going to just kind of recommend a hospital show or try to find one that is hospital, but maybe with a little bit of a twist. So it's kind of like an expansion of what they like, mm-hmm. But just that people have patterns and it's just kind of maybe finding out what that pattern is and then finding something that aligns with it. Because, for example, actually last week I went out to lunch with a few people and, TV shows got brought up and I just kind of stood back for a moment. And each person had mentioned a different show that but no one else had watched all these individual shows except for me,
yeah,
which I had seen, I believe, or at least tried, because I actually have a specific set of rules. I'm actually very also strict with television shows, but that we can either talk about that later or in a second. But so it was kind of like, oh well.
So wait, no, you can't just say I have rules.
Well, I do want to discuss it. No, I do want to mention it, but
now we got to stick a pin in what you're saying, and let's go into the rules.
I mean, the end of that was just that I had watched it all, and I was kind of able to be like the middle ground person that kind of connects with individually, and also promote that idea, like to say yes, that show is really good for.
So you have so you're able to be, with that expertise, you're able to have a sort of intersection with everybody at the table.
I love that you call it an expertise.
Yeah. So,
I never would have considered it that.
No worries.
But yes,
we're coming back back to the rules. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I didn't forget.
Yeah.
It's not so much a rule as it is a it's interesting because I guess it's all about perception really, but with how much time I devote to watching stuff, which is really just me sitting down watching stuff, that takes a lot of time. And because of that, it almost may make me seem very open-minded, which I am, but I'm also very strict with my time. So a couple things is that typically a show, like when I was in college, when I had a little bit more time and felt like, aging wasn't a thing, I would give a show a whole season before deciding how I felt about it. Now I give a show 2 episodes, normally 1, but they're lucky if I give them 2 if I see something potential. I don't. I know I started to really value my time, and I understand that. Yeah, that some shows. Well, because this all started because a lot of conversations I've had about TV shows as well is that people will stick with shows to the very end as they are like brutally beating themselves up to watch it. And I go, why are you putting yourself through that angst? You're spending hours upon hours watching something that you're not entirely enjoying. It's like a hopeful thing, especially when shows nowadays have 5, 6, 7 seasons.
Right. And that's wisdom for everybody that, you've got 1, 2 chances to open somebody's mind to something. So I think that those boundaries of, this is where my time and my attention is going to go is something that all of us have to be mindful of when we're presenting ourselves to a potential audience.
Right. And it's trying as much as I can also to end something, especially if it's a show that I do actively track, trying to end it on as much of a high note as I possibly can. And often that tends to happen when shows will do something to like the main character. They'll either maybe kill them off or they'll move on. Or whatever show. There's a couple of notable shows are like Shameless, when Emmy Rossum left after 8 seasons or 9, and then they continued the show without her. I was out. To me, it was kind of like, no. I mean, I was with the show already she was the protagonist. I mean, I was already with the show for 8, 9 years. That's a long time already.
She's a protagonist, and she left the show, and they continued.
It's kind of she's the head. It's kind of more of like a triangle. She's kind of was always at the head, but all of the family members were really right underneath her. They followed all of them. It was a family. It was following a family, but she was the head of the family. So eventually, she kind of moved on to do other projects, I would assume, and the show kind of continued without her. And I was kind of like, to me, the show is ending. They did the same thing with Vampire Diaries, where the lead actress, they kind of killed her. That's the short version. Right. And I was like, okay, they did that also with The Affair on Showtime where they killed him. So it was just like, so to me, I want to end it on this high note, and I watched a few seasons. I loved it. And that's kind of, and then I just kind of move on, I open up that time slot, I guess, my kind of internal time slot to be able to consume something else. I don't like to waste time, really.
So I think, and then we're wrapping up since I wanted to make sure I'm making sure I open up your time slot. So, so
I'm good.
Okay.
I got a little bit too much time again.
No worries. So in that, I think, the wisdom that we're getting from you, first of all, is understanding the way that people are consuming things, and consuming things with time and attention. So those of us who are producing those things, we need to make sure that we're clear that people are taking our work and our storytelling seriously. And I'm also hearing that when we're obsessed with something, we need to make sure that we are addressing our audience in terms of relevance and what's relevant. And then the third thing I'm hearing is don't disappoint your audience. So I mean, if your audience is, you've got 1 or 2 chances to get it right. or else people move on. And if your audience is completely invested in a protagonist, if you've done the work to get that person, completely arced, then yeah, I mean, don't negate the emotional currency that the audience is invested in certain characters in certain places. So, like, I know there's a couple of shows that I was sad that some of the characters left. And I know American Gods, when Anansi, when they had the concern with Anansi and Anansi disappeared, he was a really beautiful part of the story, and it kind of lost because the trickster kind of conversation. I don't know if you're familiar with American Gods.
Is that on AMC?
It was on Stars. It was on Stars. It's a Neil Gaiman. If you're familiar with Neil Gaiman,
okay.
Yeah,
I've heard of it. Stars is actually one of the networks that I don't track anything on that channel. I don't think so, but
it's they have very interesting very interesting gritty, like Stars, all very gritty characters.
Yeah, because I know they had that one really popular show also. They have a few. I mean, I know they had Power, and then they have that other kind of period piece one.
Yeah, Stars is very very interesting, like very compelling. Like the storytelling in Stars is always very rich, right? So the characters are ridiculously complex. This was one of the reasons I really liked American Gods. The characters were very, very complex, also based in, because I love storytelling, also based in mythology and like global mythologies. So the ways in which they reinterpreted global mythologies to fit into an American construct was very, very interesting. So it was a nice character study. But yeah, then they lost one of the most interesting characters, which was Anansi. And there's a couple of other shows that have done that. So I think it's okay for a showrunner to decide that, okay, this is done. So like the same thing with what was the other one? The Watchmen, which is also something based on mythology and comics and things like that. I like very, very deep and multi-layered symbolic stories. And that one season done. Everybody was like, it needs a second season. So, but that was great because, everybody was invested in the characters and everything like that. But, as far as Watchmen is concerned, I think we are currently, as a globe, living the second season of Watchmen. So,
right, exactly.
But
I love the influx of like limited series. Because I mean, it's like a movie started dating a television show.
Yeah, but
it's kind of all you need.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So thinking of that as content creators, it's not often that we get a chance to directly interview somebody who could be in our audience. So I think your perspective is great for those of us who are creating the content to keep in mind. So I really, really thank you for your time today. And
of course.
So looking forward to what comes out of your work with the MFA program at FSU and whatever else is going on for you. But thank you so much, Vyky Saiz.
Yay. Thank you. Of course, anytime.
Thank you for tuning in to 10,000 Women, 10,000 Stages. Share this episode with someone who needs it. Find us at 10,000women10,000stages.com.